Number 1. Jack was a young sailor. He lived in England, but he was often away with his ship. One summer, he came back from a long voyage and found new neighbors near his mother's house. They had a pretty daughter, and Jack soon loved her very much. He said to her, "My next voyage will begin in a few days' time, Gloria. I love you, and I'll marry you when I come back. I'll think about you all the time, and I'll write to you and send you a present from every port." Jack's first port was Freetown in Africa, and he sent Gloria a parrot from there. It spoke 5 languages. When Jack's ship reached Australia, there was a letter from Gloria. It said, "Thank you for the parrot, Jack. It tasted much better than a chicken."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Jack make long voyages? Number 2. Where did Gloria live? Number 3. Why did Jack think about Gloria all the time? Number 4. Where did Jack send Gloria the parrot from? Number 5. Where did Jack get Gloria's letter about the parrot? Number 6. What did Gloria do to the parrot?
Number 2. Fanny and Ethel worked in the same office, and they were neighbours at home. Fanny was rather a careless girl, and she often lost things. Then she usually went to Ethel to borrow more from her. Ethel was a kind girl, but she sometimes got tired of lending things to her friend. One Saturday afternoon, Fanny knocked at Ethel's front door, and when Ethel came to open it, Fanny said to her, "Oh, hello, Ethel. Please lend me a bag. I've lost mine. I'm going to the shops, and I feel very stupid when I haven't got anything in my hand when I go out in the street." Ethel laughed and answered, "Well, Fanny, go down to the end of the garden. You'll find a nice wheelbarrow in the shed there. Take that when you go down to the shops. Then you'll have something in both of your hands."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Fanny often lose things? Number 2. Why did Ethel lend things to Fanny? Number 3. Why didn't Fanny want to go to the shops without a bag? Number 4. Why didn't Ethel lend her a bag? Number 5. What did she want Fanny to take to the shops? Number 6. Did Fanny take it, do you think?
Number 3. Dave married, and when his new wife saw the clothes in his cupboard, she said, "Dave, you have only got one good shirt. The others are very old, and they've got holes in them. I'm going to buy you a new one this afternoon." Dave liked his old shirts, but he loved his wife too, so he said, All right, Beryl. But please don't throw any of the old ones away. Dave went to work, and when he came back in the evening, Beryl said to him, "Look, Dave, I've bought you a nice shirt. Here it is. Put it on." Dave put the shirt on, and then he said, "Look at the sleeves, Beryl. They're too long." "That's all right," Beryl answered. "They'll get shorter when I wash the shirt." Then Dave said, "But the neck's too small." "That's all right," Beryl answered. "It'll get bigger when you wear the shirt, Dave."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Beryl want to buy Dave a new shirt? Number 2. Why didn't Dave want his wife to throw any of his old shirts away? Number 3. Why didn't Dave like the sleeves of his new shirt? Number 4. What did Beryl say about the sleeves? Number 5. Why didn't Dave like the collar of the shirt? Number 6. What did Beryl say about the collar?
Number 4. Mrs. Williams lived in a small street in London, and now she had a new neighbour. Her name was Mrs. Briggs, and she talked a lot about her expensive furniture, her beautiful carpets, and her new kitchen. "Do you know," she said to Mrs. Williams one day, "I've got a new dishwasher. It washes the plates and glasses and knives and forks beautifully." "Oh?" Mrs. Williams answered. "And does it dry them and put them in the cupboard too?" Mrs. Briggs was surprised. "Well," she answered, "the things in the machine are dry after an hour, but it doesn't put them away, of course." "I've had a dishwasher for 12.5 years, Mrs. Williams said. "Oh?" Mrs. Briggs answered. "And does yours put the things in the cupboard when it has washed them?" She laughed nastily. "Yes, he does," Mrs. Williams answered. "He dries the dishes and puts them away."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Where did Mrs. Briggs live? Number 2. Why was Mrs. Briggs surprised? Number 3. Did Mrs. Briggs's dishwasher dry the plates and other things? Number 4. Did it put them away? Number 5. Did Mrs. Williams's dishwasher put the things in the cupboard? Number 6. Who was Mrs. Williams's dishwasher?
Number 5. One day, a man went to see his doctor and said to him, "I've swallowed a horse, doctor, and I feel very ill." The doctor thought for a few seconds and then said, "All right, Mr. Lloyd, I'll help you. Please lie down on this bed." The doctor's nurse gave the man an injection. The man went to sleep. and the doctor went out quickly to look for a horse in the town. After half an hour he found one, borrowed it, and took it into his office. So when Mr. Lloyd woke up, it was there in front of him. "Here's the horse, Mr. Lloyd," the doctor said. "I've taken it out of your stomach, and it won't give you any more trouble now." At first, Mr. Lloyd was happy. But then he looked at the horse again and said, "But, doctor, my horse was white, and this one's brown."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Did the doctor think, "This man has really swallowed a horse"? Number 2. Why did the nurse give the man an injection? Number 3. What did the doctor do when he went out? Number 4. What did Mr. Lloyd see when he woke up? Number 5. Why was Mr. Lloyd not happy when he looked at the horse more carefully?
Number 6. A history teacher was talking to his class about the ancient Romans. They were very strong, brave people, and they were good soldiers, he said. They always wanted to have strong bodies, so they played a lot of games. Did they like swimming? One of the girls asked. That makes people's bodies strong. She was very good at swimming. Oh, yes. Some of them swam a lot, the teacher answered. Then he told them a story about one famous Roman. There was a big, wide river in the middle of Rome, he said. It was the Tiber, and this man swam across it 3 times every day before breakfast. The girl laughed when she heard this. "Why are you laughing?" the teacher asked her angrily. "Have I said anything funny?" "Well, sir," the girl answered, "why didn't he swim across the river 4 times to get back to his clothes again?"
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did the ancient Romans play a lot of games? Number 2. Why was one of the girls interested in swimming? Number 3. Who swam across the Tiber before breakfast? Number 4. Why was the teacher angry? Number 5. Why did the girl laugh?
Number 7. Betty Brown was 5 years old, and her mother wanted her to begin going to school because she wanted to start working in an office again. A month before the beginning of the school year, Mrs. Brown began telling Betty about school. "It's very nice," she said. "You'll play games and paint pictures and sing songs." Mrs. Brown began doing these things with Betty. Betty liked the games and the painting and the singing very much, but she always wanted to be near her mother. So Mrs. Brown was rather afraid and thought, "What will she do when I leave her at school?" But on the first day at school, Betty was very good. She did not cry, and she was happy. On the second morning, Mrs. Brown said, Put your clothes on, Betty. I'm going to take you to school in half an hour's time. School? Betty said. But I've been to school.
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Mrs. Brown want to send her daughter to school? Number 2. What did Mrs. Brown do to make Betty like school? Number 3. Why was Mrs. Brown afraid? Number 4. Did Betty like school when she went there? Number 5. Why was Betty surprised when her mother said, "I'm going to take you to school in half an hour's time," on the second morning?
Number 8. One morning, Mrs. Perry said to her husband, "Jack, there's a meeting of our ladies' club at Mrs. Young's house at lunchtime today, and I want to go to it. I'll leave you some food for your lunch. Is that all right?" "Oh, yes," her husband answered. "That's quite all right. What are you going to leave for my lunch?" "This tin of fish," Mrs. Perry said, "and there are some cold boiled potatoes and some beans here too." "Good," Mr. Perry answered. "I'll have a good lunch." So Mrs. Perry went to her meeting. All the ladies had lunch at Mrs. Young's house, and at 3 o'clock Mrs. Perry came home. "Was your fish nice, Jack?" she asked. "Yes, but my feet are hurting," he answered. "Why are they hurting?" Mrs. Perry asked. "Well, the words on the tin were, 'Open tin and stand in hot water for 5 minutes.'"
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why didn't Mrs. Perry want to cook her husband's lunch? Number 2. What did she leave him for his lunch? Number 3. Did Mr. Perry enjoy his lunch? Number 4. What was the matter with his feet? Number 5. What mistake did Mr. Perry make when he read the words on the tin?
Number 9. Miss Green was very fat. She weighed 100 kilos, and she was getting heavier every month. So she went to see her doctor. He said, "You need a diet, Miss Green, and I've got a good one here." He gave her a small book and said, "Read this carefully and eat the things on page 11 every day. Then come back and see me in 2 weeks' time." Miss Green came again 2 weeks later, but she wasn't thinner, she was fatter. The doctor was surprised and said, "Are you eating the things on page 11 of the small book?" "Yes, doctor," she answered. The next day, the doctor visited Miss Green during her dinner. She was very surprised to see him. "Miss Green," he said, "why are you eating potatoes and bread? They aren't in your diet." "But, doctor," Miss Green answered, "I ate my diet at lunchtime. This is my dinner."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Miss Green go to see her doctor? Number 2. How did the doctor try to help her? Number 3. Did she get thinner? Number 4. Did she eat the things on page 11 of the book? Number 5. Why didn't she get thinner?
Number 10. Rose left school when she was 17 years old and went to a college for a year to learn to type. She passed her examinations quite well and then went to look for work. She was still living with her parents. A lot of people were looking for typists at that time, so it was not difficult to find interesting work. Rose went to several offices and then chose one of them. It was near her parents' house. She thought, "I'll walk there every morning. I won't need to go by bus." She went to the office again and said to the manager, "I want to work here, but what will you pay me?" "We'll pay you £27 now," the manager answered, "and £30 after 3 months." Rose thought for a few seconds before she answered. Then she said, "All right, then I'll start in 3 months' time."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why was it easy to find interesting work? Number 2. Why did Rose want to work in an office near her parents' house? Number 3. Why did Rose go to one office again? Number 4. Whom did she talk to there? Number 5. Why did she want to start working there in 3 months' time?
Number 11. Mr. Day was a teacher at a school in a big city in the north of England. He usually went to France or Germany for a few weeks during his summer holidays, and he spoke French and German quite well. But one year, Mr. Day said to one of his friends, "I'm going to have a holiday in Athens, but I don't speak Greek. So I'll go to evening classes and have Greek lessons for a month before I go." He studied very hard for a month, and then his holidays began, and he went to Greece. When he came back, a few weeks later, his friend said to him, "Did you have any trouble with your Greek when you were in Athens, Dick?" "No, I didn't have any trouble with it," answered Mr. Day, "but the Greeks did."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Where did Mr. Day usually spend some time during his holidays? Number 2. Why did he want to have Greek lessons? Number 3. Where did he go to learn Greek? Number 4. How long did he stay in Greece? Number 5. How much did his Greek help him while he was in Greece?
Number 12. Mr. Pierce liked shooting ducks very much. Whenever he had a free day, he went out shooting with his friends. But one summer he said to himself, "I've never been to the mountains. My holidays are going to begin soon, so I'm going to go to the mountains and shoot deer. They're more interesting than ducks, I think. So, when his holidays began, Mr. Pierce went to the station, bought his ticket, and was soon in the mountains. He got out at a small station and walked through fields and forests for a few kilometers. Then he saw a farmer in a field. "Good morning," Mr. Pierce said to him. "Are there any deer here?" "Well," answered the farmer slowly, "there was one last year, but all the gentlemen from the town came and shot at it, and it's gone somewhere else now, I think."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. What sport did Mr. Pierce enjoy most? Number 2. Why did he want to go to the mountains? Number 3. How did he go to the mountains? Number 4. Whom did he speak to there? Number 5. Why did the deer go away from that place?
Number 13. Mr. Leonard was 23 years old and not very rich. He was not married, and he lived in 2 rooms in a small house in a city. Every summer, Mr. Leonard went down to the sea for a holiday. He stayed in small, cheap hotels, but he always wanted to have a clean, tidy room. He hated dirty places. One summer, a friend of his said, "Go to the Tower Hotel in Whitesea. I went there last year, and it was very nice and clean." So Mr. Leonard went to the Tower Hotel in Whitesea. But there was a different manager that year. The new manager took Mr. Leonard to his room. The room looked quite nice and clean, but Mr. Leonard said to the manager, "Are the sheets on the bed clean?" "Yes, of course they are," he answered angrily. "We washed them this morning. Feel them. They're still damp."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Mr. Leonard stay in cheap hotels? Number 2. What kinds of rooms did Mr. Leonard not like? Number 3. Who gave Mr. Leonard the name of the Tower Hotel? Number 4. Why was the new manager angry? Number 5. Where were the damp sheets?
Number 14. 2 years after Tom and Elizabeth married, they went to live in a small flat in a big city. They were both quite young. Tom was 26 and Elizabeth was 22. Tom worked in a bank and Elizabeth worked in a big office. Elizabeth always cooked the dinner when they got home, and when they had meat, Tom always cut it up when they sat down to eat. While Tom was cutting the meat up one evening, Elizabeth said to him, "When we were first married, Tom, you always gave me the bigger piece of meat when you cut it, and you kept the smaller one for yourself. Now you do the opposite. You give me the smaller piece and keep the bigger one for yourself. Why do you do that? Don't you love me any more?" Her husband laughed and answered, "Oh no, Elizabeth, it isn't that. It's because you've learnt to cook now."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Who cooks in Tom's house? Number 2. What work does Tom do during meals? Number 3. What did Tom always do when he and Elizabeth first married? Number 4. What does he do now? Number 5. Why has he changed?
Number 15. Mrs. Jenkins went to see her doctor one day because her heart was giving her trouble. The doctor listened to her heart carefully and did a few other things. Then he said, "Well, Mrs. Jenkins, stop smoking, and then you'll soon be quite all right again." "But, doctor," answered Mrs. Jenkins quickly, "I've never smoked. I don't like smoking." "Oh, well," said the doctor, "then don't drink any more alcohol." "But I don't drink alcohol," answered Mrs. Jenkins at once. "Stop drinking tea and coffee, then," the doctor said to her. "I only drink water," answered Mrs. Jenkins. "I don't like tea or coffee." The doctor thought for a few seconds and then said, "Well, do you like fried potatoes?" "Yes, I like them very much," answered Mrs. Jenkins. "All right, then stop eating those," said the doctor, as he got up to say goodbye to Mrs. Jenkins.
Now answer these questions. Number 1. What was Mrs. Jenkins having trouble with? Number 2. Why did Mrs. Jenkins not smoke? Number 3. What did Mrs. Jenkins drink? Number 4. What did she like eating? Number 5. What did the doctor want her to do?
Number 16. John liked chocolates very much, but his mother never gave him any because they were bad for his teeth, she thought. But John had a very nice grandfather. The old man loved his grandson very much, and sometimes he brought John chocolates when he came to visit him. Then his mother let him eat them, because she wanted to make the old man happy. One evening, a few days before John's 7th birthday, he was saying his prayers in his bedroom before he went to bed. "Please, God," he shouted, "make them give me a big box of chocolates for my birthday on Saturday." His mother was in the kitchen, but she heard the small boy shouting and went into his bedroom quickly. "Why are you shouting, John?" she asked her son. "God can hear you when you talk quietly." "I know," answered the clever boy with a smile, "but grandfather's in the next room, and he can't."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why didn't John get any chocolates from his mother? Number 2. Why did his grandfather give him chocolates? Number 3. Who did John really mean when he said them while he was saying his prayers? Number 4. Why did John's mother go into his bedroom quickly? Number 5. What did John want his grandfather to do on Saturday?
Number 17. It was Jimmy's birthday, and he was 5 years old. He got quite a lot of nice birthday presents from his family, and one of them was a beautiful big drum. "Who gave him that thing?" Jimmy's father said when he saw it. "His grandfather did," answered Jimmy's mother. "Oh," said his father. Of course, Jimmy liked his drum very much. He made a terrible noise with it, but his mother did not mind. His father was working during the day, and Jimmy was in bed when he got home in the evening, so he did not hear the noise. But one of the neighbors did not like the noise at all. So one morning, a few days later, she took a sharp knife and went to Jimmy's house while he was hitting his drum. She said to him, "Hello, Jimmy. Do you know, there's something very nice inside your drum. Here's a knife. Open the drum and let's find it."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. When did Jimmy get the drum? Number 2. Whom did he get it from? Number 3. Why didn't his father hear it? Number 4. Why did the neighbour really want Jimmy to cut the drum open? Number 5. What did she say to Jimmy to make him cut it open?
Number 18. When Tom Howard was 17 years old, he was as tall as his father. So he began to borrow Mr. Howard's clothes when he wanted to go out with his friends in the evening. Mr. Howard did not like this, and he always got very angry when he found his son wearing any of his things. One evening, when Tom came downstairs to go out, his father stopped him in the hall. He looked at Tom's clothes very carefully. Then he said angrily, "Isn't that one of my ties, Tom?" "Yes, father, it is," answered Tom. "And that shirt's mine too, isn't it?" his father continued. "Yes, that's yours too," answered Tom. "And you're wearing my belt," said Mr. Howard. "Yes, I am, father," answered Tom. "You don't want your trousers to fall down, do you?"
Now answer these questions. Number 1. When did Tom begin to borrow his father's clothes? Number 2. When did he put them on? Number 3. What did Tom's father do when he borrowed his clothes? Number 4. Which of his father's clothes was Tom wearing in this story?
Number 19. Mr. Yates was nearly 90, so it was often difficult for him to remember things. But he still liked travelling very much, so he and his wife went to Spain every year. One summer, when they were there, they went to visit some friends. These people had 2 young daughters. One afternoon, Mr. Yates was talking to one of the girls in the garden after lunch. "You and your sister were ill when my wife and I were here last year, weren't you?" he said to her. "Yes, we were," answered the girl. "We were very ill." The old man said nothing for a minute, because he was thinking. Then, at last, he said, "Oh, yes, I remember now. One of you died. Which one of you was it, you or your sister?" The girl answered, "It was me." "Oh, I'm very sorry to hear it," said the old man.
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did Mr. Yates not remember things very well? Number 2. Where did his friends live? Number 3. Who were ill when Mr. and Mrs. Yates visited Spain another time? Number 4. Who really died then? Number 5. Was the girl having a joke with Mr. Yates?
Number 20. Mr. Nott was a teacher. He taught in a big school in London. He lived a long way from the school, so he was usually quite tired when he got home. At 9 o'clock one evening, when he was in bed, the telephone bell rang in the hall of his small house. So he went downstairs, picked up the telephone and said, "This is Whitebridge, 3165. Who's speaking, please?" "What?" a man answered. "What's your name, please?" said Mr. Nott. "What's my name?" was the answer. "Yes, I asked you that. What's your name?" Mr. Nott said again. "I told you. What's my name?" said the other man. "Are you Jack Smith?" "No, I'm not," answered Mr. Nott. "Will you give me your name, please?" said Mr. Watt. "Will not," answered Mr. Nott. Both Mr. Watt and Mr. Will Not put their telephones down angrily and thought, that was a rude, stupid man.
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why was Mr. Nott usually tired in the evenings? Number 2. Why did he get up and go downstairs when he was already in bed? Number 3. Who telephoned him? Number 4. Whom did Mr. Watt want to speak to? Number 5. When Mr. Nott said, "will not," what did Mr. Watt think?
Number 21. Carol Roberts left school when she was 17 and then thought, what's going to happen now? I want to marry a nice young man and have children. But no nice young men have asked me yet. Will I meet one soon? And will he want to marry me? She spoke to her best friend about these questions, and her best friend said, "Go and ask a fortune teller. Perhaps she'll give you the answers." So Carol went to see a fortune teller. The fortune teller said to her, "I'll give you answers to 2 questions. It'll cost you £5. Carol was surprised. She thought for some time, but at last she paid the money. Then she said to the fortune teller, "Isn't that very expensive for only 2 questions?" "Yes, it is," answered the fortune teller. "And now, what's your second question?"
Now answer these questions. Number 1. What did Carol want to do after she left school? Number 2. What questions did she want to ask the fortune teller? Number 3. Why was Carol surprised? Number 4. How much money did she give the fortune teller? Number 5. How did she spend half that money?
Number 22. Jack had a small red car, and he liked driving it very fast. This was all right when he was out in the country, but in towns and big villages, driving fast is dangerous, so there is always a speed limit. In Jack's country, it was 50 kilometers an hour. Jack often drove faster than that through towns. One day, Jack was driving his small red car through a town when a very young policeman stopped him and said, "You were driving at more than 50 kilometers an hour, sir. Please give me your name and address." Jack looked at the young policeman carefully for a few seconds, and then said to him, "But I started my journey less than an hour ago." The policeman was new to this work, and did not know the answer to Jack's excuse. He thought for a few seconds, and then let Jack go.
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why is there a speed limit in towns and big villages? Number 2. How fast did Jack sometimes drive through towns? Number 3. Why did the young policeman stop Jack? Number 4. What was Jack's excuse? Number 5. Why did the policeman let Jack go?
Number 23. Dick was 7 years old, and his sister Catherine was 5. One day their mother took them to their aunt's house to play, while she went to the big city to buy some new clothes. The children played for an hour, and then at 4:30 their aunt took Dick into the kitchen. She gave him a nice cake and a knife, and said to him, "Now, here's a knife, Dick. Cut this cake in half, and give one of the pieces to your sister. But remember to do it like a gentleman." "Like a gentleman?" Dick asked. "How do gentlemen do it?" "They always give the bigger piece to the other person," answered his aunt at once. "Oh," said Dick. He thought about this for a few seconds. Then he took the cake to his sister and said to her, "Cut this cake in half, Catherine."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did the children's mother leave them at their aunt's house? Number 2. What did Dick's aunt want him to do with the cake? Number 3. What do gentlemen do when there are 2 pieces of cake? Number 4. Which piece did Dick's aunt want him to give Catherine? Number 5. What did Dick do with the cake?
Number 24. A small boy and his father were having a walk in the country when it suddenly began to rain very hard. They did not have their umbrellas with them, and there was nowhere to hide from the rain, so they were soon very wet, and the small boy did not feel very happy. For a long time, while they were walking home through the rain, the boy was thinking. Then at last he turned to his father and said to him, "Why does it rain, father? It isn't very nice, is it?" "No, it isn't very nice, but it's very useful, Tom," answered his father. "It rains to make the fruit and the vegetables grow for us, and to make the grass grow for the cows and sheep." Tom thought about this for a few seconds, and then he said, "Then why does it rain on the road too, father?"
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Where were the small boy and his father when it began to rain? Number 2. Why did they get wet? Number 3. Why didn't the small boy feel happy? Number 4. How is rain useful? Number 5. Was Tom happy with his father's answer?
Number 25. A man went into a bar, sat down, called the barman, and said to him, "Give me a drink before the trouble starts." The barman was busy with other people, so he did not say anything, but he gave the man the drink, and the man drank it quickly. Then he put his glass down, called the barman again, and said to him, "Give me another one before the trouble starts." Again, the barman was too busy to say anything, so he gave the man his drink and went away. The man drank that too, and then again he called the barman and said to him, "One more drink before the trouble starts, please." This time the barman was not very busy, so when he brought the man his third drink, he said to him, "What trouble are you talking about?" The man answered, "I haven't got any money."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why didn't the barman ask any questions when he gave the man his first 2 drinks? Number 2. How many drinks did the barman bring the man? Number 3. How did the man drink his first drink? Number 4. Why did the barman have time to ask the man a question when he brought him his third drink? Number 5. What was the man's trouble?
Number 26. A man and his wife had a small bar near a station. The bar often stayed open until after midnight, because people came to drink there while they were waiting for trains. At 2 o'clock one morning, one man was still sitting at a table in the small bar. He was asleep. The barman's wife wanted to go to bed. She looked into the bar several times, and each time the man was still there. Then at last she went to her husband and said to him, "You've woken that man 6 times now, George, but he isn't drinking anything. Why haven't you sent him away?" It's very late." "Oh, no, I don't want to send him away," answered her husband with a smile. "You see, whenever I wake him up, he asks for his bill, and when I bring it to him, he pays it. Then he goes to sleep again."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did people come to drink in the bar after midnight? Number 2. Why did the barman's wife want him to send the man at the table away? Number 3. What was he doing at 2 a.m.? Number 4. Did her husband send the man away? Number 5. Why did he let him stay?
Number 27. Two friends were camping together. Their names were Jim and Tim. Tim was very lazy. The first evening of their holiday, Jim said to Tim, "Here's some money. Go and buy some meat." "I'm too tired," answered Tim. "You go." So Jim went to buy the meat. When he came back, he said to Tim, "Now, here's the meat. Please cook it." But Tim answered, "No, I'm not good at cooking. You do it." So Jim cooked the meat. Then Jim said to Tim, "Cut the bread." But Tim answered, "I don't want to." So Jim cut the bread. Then he said to Tim, "Go and get some water, please." "No, I don't want to get my clothes dirty," Tim answered. So Jim got the water. At last Jim said, "The meal's ready, come and eat it." "Well, I'll do that," answered Tim. "I don't like saying no all the time."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. What was Tim's excuse for not buying the meat? Number 2. What was his excuse for not cooking it? Number 3. What was his excuse for not cutting the bread? Number 4. What was his excuse for not getting the water? Number 5. What did he do when Jim asked him to eat?
Number 28. One morning, a man was crossing a narrow bridge when he saw a fisherman on the shady bank of the deep, smooth river under him, so he stopped to watch him quietly. After a few minutes, the fisherman pulled his line in. There was a big, fat fish at the end of it. The fisherman took it off the hook and threw it back into the water. Then he put his hook and line in again. After a few more minutes, he caught another big fish. Again, he threw it back into the river. Then the third time, he caught a small fish. He put it into his basket and started to get ready to go. The man on the bridge was very surprised, so he spoke to the fisherman. He said, "Why did you throw those beautiful big fish back into the water and keep only that small one?" The fisherman looked up and answered, "Small frying pan."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did the first man in this story stop on the bridge. Number 2. What did the fisherman do when he caught the first fish? Number 3. What did he do when he caught the second? Number 4. What did he do when he caught the third? Number 5. Why didn't he keep the first 2 fish?
Number 29. When the Americans were getting ready to send their first men to the moon, an old Irishman was watching them on television in the bar of a hotel. There was an Englishman in the bar too, and he said to the Irishman, "The Americans are very clever, aren't they? They're going to send some men to the moon. It's a very long way from our world." "Oh, that's nothing," the Irishman answered quickly. "The Irish are going to send some men to the sun in a few months' time. That's much farther away than the moon, you know." The Englishman was very surprised when he heard this. "Oh, yes, it is," he said. "But the sun's too hot for people to go to." The Irishman laughed and answered, "Well, the Irish aren't stupid, you know. We won't go to the sun during the day, of course. We'll go there during the night."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Who were in the bar of the hotel? Number 2. What was the Irishman watching on television? Number 3. What did the Irish want to do? Number 4. Why was the Englishman surprised? Number 5. Is the sun really cool during the night?
Number 30. Dave's class at school were studying English history, and one day their teacher said to them, "Well, boys, on Friday we're all going to get on a bus and go to Conway. There's a beautiful castle there, and we're going to visit it." The boys were very happy when they heard this. "Now, has anybody got any questions?" the teacher asked. "How old is the castle, sir?" Dave asked. "It's about 700 years old, Dave," the teacher answered. "What's the name of the castle, sir?" another boy asked. "Conway Castle," the teacher said. On Friday, the boys came to school at 9 o'clock and got into the bus. They visited Conway Castle, and then they came back and went home. "Well," Dave's mother said to him when he got home, "did you like the castle, Dave?" "Not very much," Dave answered. "The stupid people built it too near the railway."
Now answer these questions. Number 1. Why did the boys go to Conway Castle? Number 2. Who did they go with? Number 3. When was the castle built? Number 4. Did Dave enjoy visiting the castle? Number 5. Why didn't he like it?